Jumping back into Avatar The Last Airbender today. Hold on. That's not right. There. Yeah, that's much better. Jumping back into Avatar, though. We're talking about the waterbending scroll today. What I consider to be a classic episode of the show. It's one of those morality play kinds of message show episodes, right? You see them in kids' shows all the time. Usually they're pretty simplistic. But this one, while it pretends to be simplistic, and it does have a simplistic element to it for the little kids who are watching this, it's significantly deeper than it seems. Aang's worried that he's not going to learn all of the other three elements fast enough now that he knows there's a time crunch. So Katara tries to teach him what she knows of waterbending to get him started. And he masters the three techniques that she's managed to work out for herself pretty much immediately. And even does them better than she did. And like Aang even says it, that she had to work this stuff out for herself. And he had help. He says specifically that he has a great teacher, which is true. Katara is good at teaching this stuff. But remember, he's also the Avatar. All of those past avatars, he is them. He has like the spiritual equivalent of muscle memory guiding him. And also, he's just kind of a prodigy anyway. Aang is just really good at bending. Most kinds of bending, anyway. And Katara knows this. And Aang isn't, like, rubbing it in her face or anything. But she can't help but feel jealous and get competitive. Because that is, I won't say a flaw. It's like not, like, universally a flaw. But it's an aspect of her character. Right? That it can be a flaw. And the way she responds in this episode is definitely a flaw. She gets annoyed with him. She's jealous of his ability. So when Aang accidentally washes all their supplies downriver, they have to go into town. And they happen to peruse a pirate ship. They don't know at first that it's a pirate ship, but it's a pirate ship. And find a genuine waterbending scroll containing genuine waterbending forms. Even though the pirates already have a buyer lined up for it. Even though it's way too expensive, they don't have nearly enough money to buy it. She wants it anyway. And they've alluded to the fact that they stole it from a northern waterbender. So she feels justified in stealing it, which, I mean, I think she is, frankly. I think that's when it's okay to steal something, when it's been stolen from you or your people. But, you know, probably not the smartest thing to do in this specific situation. And that's basically what the episode's about. Because, of course, the pirates realize immediately that it's gone. It probably wasn't even supposed to be out there sitting with the other scrolls if they already have a buyer, right? So obviously the minute she leaves, they're going to go check on it. And they're going to find out it's not there. So now these pirates are chasing her and the rest of the gang. And coincidentally at the same time, Zuko needs to come into port too. And he's right behind them. So he comes into port at the same place. He ends up teaming up with the pirates. They get their scroll and he gets the Avatar. He doesn't say the Avatar, but the kid with the girl they're trying to find. Meanwhile, Katara has tried to use the scroll to learn a new technique, the water whip. So Aang tries to help her, like she helped him, by guiding her through it, because he's already gotten it. And she blows up at him. And she makes him feel terrible, which makes her feel terrible. And at this point, everybody has started to realize that this is mostly about her, that even acquiring the scroll in the first place was mostly about her when it really shouldn't have been. And so she promises not to touch the scroll again, which she shouldn't have done either. She should have just promised to be better, right? And so of course she doesn't keep that promise. That night, she sneaks away to practice with the scroll again. And that allows her to be spotted by Zuko and the pirates, which leads to Zuko capturing her and trying to use her necklace that he still has as leverage to get her to rat out Aang. And even though she won't, with the help of the pirates, Zuko does end up capturing Aang and Sokka, or at least the pirates do, to bring to him. Thankfully, though, Sokka's on his A game today, and he reveals to the pirates who Aang is. So now they want him to ransom to the Fire Lord, obviously, which puts them in conflict with Zuko, gets all of their enemies fighting each other, gives them a chance to escape. And there's a really cool action scene here. What we see of it is good, solid action, but for the most part, it's played for comedy. Like, there's a dogfight between Momo and the pirate's parrot lizard thing, that's like the primary genuine action piece here. The rest of it's kind of cartoony. It all takes place in a big dust cloud. You can't really see anything. You just hear the sounds of fighting, which I'm sure saved on the animation budget on one hand, but it also leads to a really funny scene where Aang and Sokka, they're in the dust cloud, they're trying to find each other, and so Aang blows all the dust away, realizes he's right in the middle of a bunch of Zuko's soldiers and pirates fighting. They all see him, so he sucks the dust back in, and they just go right back to fighting each other. It's a fantastic scene, and a really great example of where the sometimes childish and cartoony humor in this show really lands well. The whole scene feels kind of like something from an old cartoon, and it works really well here because it jumps right into another action scene where the gang is on the pirates' boat, and the pirates are on Zuko's landing boat, and they're in a chase, and they're about to go over a waterfall, and Aang and Katara have to learn one of the techniques that Katara taught Aang to stop the ship long enough for Aang to bring Appa to them using a bison whistle that he bought seemingly on impulse back in town that seemed like a useless impulse buy. They escape, and Katara really breaks down what the mistakes were that she made and gives a much more genuine and much more realistic apology. They all reconcile, and there's even a bit of a message at the end. The episode says that the message of the day is that it's wrong to steal, except from pirates, which I think is probably fine. And I'm sure that's the message that they wanted the little kids to pick up on more than anything, but really the message of this episode is that every action has a consequence. Like, they only had to go into town because Aang wasn't paying attention when he was practicing his waterbending and accidentally washed their supplies away. Katara only stole that scroll because she couldn't control her jealousy towards Aang. Zuko is only so close behind them because of some of the detours they took in the past. He was able to leverage Katara's necklace because she lost it on one of those detours. Even meeting the pirates and the confrontation between Zuko and the pirates leads to consequences down the line. The episode does a really good job of showing you how everything has consequences, and that when you're in a situation where the consequences of an action are potentially so extreme that you can't even know what they might be, you really have to learn to weigh the risks against the rewards. But where the real nuance of the episode really comes in is where it shows that even risky situations can have positive consequences. Just going into town was a risk, and spending one of their last 3 coins on a bison whistle that humans can't even hear the sound that it makes. Those were both risks, and yet they pay off. Aang, it seems like he made an impulsive purchase, but really he weighed the possibilities and realized that the bison whistle might come in handy. And it did. And because they were able to keep a level head in the end, and because Sokka is as smart as he is and as talented as he is, they were able to get away with the scroll in the end. So while they did risk a lot, technically it paid off. Like, I'd argue that they probably didn't actually need the scroll, but you could argue the opposite. You could argue that it's a net positive that they got it. And Katara did learn a lesson in this episode that she was going to have to learn eventually. It's good that she learned it as early as she did, I guess. And then it even goes one step further and makes it clear that sometimes things just happen. Because the reason that Zuko came into port in the first place is that Iroh was looking for a replacement for his Lotus tile from his Pai Sho board, which he says it's just really important to his strategy. We find out later in the show why it's so important to him. And knowing that, I did pay really close attention to this episode to try to see if he might have had some ulterior motive for wanting to come into port here, but it really does seem like he just thought he had lost his Lotus tile, which is random chance. It's a thing that just happened, and yet the consequences of that thing led to all of these things too. This one episode did a really good job of showing the different kinds of consequences that these different kinds of situations can have, and making it really easy to absorb all of that. It's the kind of episode that a kid can watch when they're young and get one thing out of it, and then they can watch it again as they get older and get even more out of it. In fact, I've rewatched this show before. Prior to this rewatch, I've rewatched this show, and I'm still surprised by how much deeper I can delve into it. Like, for example, something that I've been noticing, but like, it really hit home in this episode. Like, I've mentioned that Zuko is never really the villain of the show. Like, Zhao is the villain of the first season. Zuko is just another protagonist. He's a protagonist who often serves as an antagonist because his goals are in conflict with the goals of the rest of our protagonists. But he's not really a villain. And because of that, he doesn't really have a hero-villain relationship with Aang. But interestingly, the closest person that he does have one with is Katara. And the more I rewatch the show and the more I think ahead to stuff that happens between them, it feels like they have the most traditional hero and villain dynamic. It's her village that he shows up to and disturbs in his search for the Avatar, setting everything in motion. He finds her necklace and uses it to leverage her against Aang. At the end of the first season, she stands against him as he delves deeper into the Northern Water Tribe than practically any other enemy ever has, trying to get to Aang. He defeats her, but then she in turn defeats him later, right back. She comes closest to anyone, aside from maybe Iroh, to turning him prior to his heel face turn. She's the slowest to trust him after his heel face turn, and she's the one who's standing with him during his final battle in the finale. They even bend opposing elements. It really does feel like on some level they're written to be foils to one another, and I'm going to have fun looking for more instances of that as I go back through the rest of the series now that I have this on my mind. But yeah, this is just, it's a really good episode. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a simple one, but it's a surprisingly deep and super effective one. As per usual though, guys, I'd like to know, what do you think of the Avatar episode, the Waterbending Scroll, if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description, but either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.